Microphone check, one,
Hey,
two.
hey,
This is Josiah Igano. Welcome. I'm here with my co-host Derek Devine on the All Things Performance podcast. Hope you all are doing well today. Derek, how we living today, man?
good, real good. How on your end? Good?
Hey, man, great, real great.
We'll
Oh
take it.
man. Hey, so today we have a topic that we're gonna.
Yeah,
Man, this is a topic that uh, I can teach on for hours, but we're gonna try and fit it in 20 minutes. It's on perfectionism. What do you think, man?
yeah. No, it's a good topic. We need to bring this up.
So when you start looking at perfectionism plagues, right, or is an integral part of so many people's lives, whether you're a professional athlete, elite musician, in the military, whether you are a business person, a parent, right, a youth athlete. This gets at everybody, man.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird, cut right, because it's like uh, it's expected, and people expect it of themselves. Yet it's also people. It also feels so unattainable.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic with perfectionism.
So as I open it up with a lot of classrooms and stuff, and I'll put you on the spot right here. Is perfectionism good or is it bad? What's your opinion, man?
My opinion is perfectionism is very good.
It's very
we,
good.
we we've talked about this a lot. I think perfectionism is needed. The problem is perfectionism is plagued with incorrect perspective.
Mm. All right, man. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're
What
still.
about you?
I don't know if you're
What's your
stealing my
thought?
notes. And as far as I'm concerned, this is one of my favorite topics because it's so universal,
Yeah.
and so many times when we talk about perfectionism, we see ourselves in the narrative because again, it applies to everybody. And
Yes.
as with you, it's a double-edged sword, and we're going to talk about that today. So when you start looking at perfectionism, right, perfectionism is this state whereby one fails to accept anything that is short of perfection as good enough. So you can
Yeah.
have all of this, success, you can have all of this progress, all this movement, you can have all these accolades, but guess what? If it's not perfect, ain't good enough. And
Yep.
you and I both know that that's unhealthy.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so
100%.
when you start looking at some of the science, the literature, some of the background with perfectionism, if you look at some of the roots, it's actually rooted in some of the clinical psychology that is in history, and people who technically had elevated levels of anxiety or depression, some of them had elevated levels of perfectionism.
Hmm.
And you see people like Dr. Kevin Leman, whose work has been extensively world renowned in the area of birth order. A lot of firstborns are perfectionists, right? They've had a
Yeah.
lot of time with mom and dad. They want to please, they want to be accomplished. So we see
Yeah.
that. When you look at perfectionists, they love to keep their world small, right? And when I say that, it's like, hey, I can handle these 5 things, but if you give me 25 things, I'm gonna go crazy because. And when I say
Yeah.
go crazy, I say that jokingly. It's gonna mess with me because now
Yeah.
I have more responsibility, and there's less of a chance that it can be what perfect.
Yeah. You're gonna find
Uh,
out what type of perfectionist they are if you give them 25 things.
oh yeah, no doubt, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah.
Perfectionists. There's these, sometimes, not all the times, there's these false narratives that they play in their mind, right? Um, People aren't going to respect me if I'm not perfect. I
Hmm.
have to be perfect at all times,
Yes.
or it doesn't matter, and they'll be quick to throw away perfect work or good. I'm over here using the word perfect, but
Yeah.
they'll throw away years, months, decades worth of work, right, and
Yeah.
effort because it's not perfect. And you and I both know that's not a healthy place to be, man.
No, and sometimes I feel the definition of perfect, uh, the person, the individual, the perfectionist, it becomes their definition of what perfect is,
Yeah.
not the real definition. So at times it's almost like, as a perfectionist, I know there were times for me, I would almost make what would be defined as success, what would be defined as perfection, could never be attained.
Yeah.
And I think that happens for people.
Yeah. It's crazy because even when you look at certain professions, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I want my surgeon to be perfect. I don't know about you. I
Oh,
need him. I need him or her to be perfect. I need my pilot to land the plane. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So these definitions are very important. And
Yeah.
on the flip side of that, right, there's a lot of bad stuff that comes with perfectionists or perfectionism. Uh,
Yeah.
some other things real quick, right? We have these maladaptive behaviors that we see, right? So they're overly concerned with what other people think.
Yeah.
They have a fear of criticism, fear of failure. There's this chasm that exists between, hey, this is what I thought was going to happen during my game, during my performance, and only this
Hmm.
happened. So guess what? It's not good enough.
Yeah.
And there's an unhealthy balance sometimes, to your prior point, that if your perspective isn't right,
Yeah.
then it muddies the whole pool, if you will. And so when you start looking at, perfectionism on the good side, there's a lot of good that can be
Yeah.
had if you have the right perspective. The research has shown us that individuals who strive to be perfect in academia, in athletics, whether we're talking about the musical arts, right? Those
Yeah.
individuals who strove for perfection actually outclassed, outscored, and outperformed their peers.
Exactly.
I mean, what are your thoughts there, man?
Yeah. And that's that's an upside that I don't know how many perfectionists really look at. It's like, because of your striving, because of your hard work, because of your work ethic, because you went into this, because of the application, of this perfection in your life, look at what you got out of it.
Yeah.
And like we've talked about too, is a lot of the times the word perfection just brings this real negative vibe or view, and it's like, I think it's one of the best things somebody could have,
Yeah. And
if
we're
they could if they could manage it.
absolutely. And we're going to talk about, an acronym today that, is very applicable, very powerful. And before we get into that, actually, you know what? I just want to share this real quick. Dr. Joaquin Stober has some of the best work out there on perfectionism.
Yeah.
And he says that there's three different types of perfectionists. You have the non-perfectionist, the healthy perfectionist, and the unhealthy perfectionist. So if you can imagine a y and an x axis, right?
Yeah.
On the vertical axis, right? Those individuals who strive high, who want to get 100% on their test, who want to hit, 15 out of 15 free throws, who want to have 100% fill in the blank of whatever it is that you want.
Yeah.
Those individuals, on that axis, he calls that perfectionistic strivings. This
Yeah.
is good. This is healthy. This is what we want.
Yeah.
On the horizontal axis, rather, he says that this is what he calls the perfectionistic concerns. So these are some of the maladaptive and the bad things that happen when you don't have the right perspective. This fear of
Yeah.
failure, fear of criticism, neuroticism, like, you know what I'm saying? Just all the bad stuff. And what he says is that those individuals who strive high
Hmm.
and they care too much about what everybody's thinking, what everybody's saying, dude, we only have one battery, bro. Those individuals are what he calls unhealthy perfectionists.
Yeah.
They strive high and they're trying way too hard and they
Yep.
care way too much. What do you think, man, about that definition or about that perfectionist?
I completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that gets in the way of perfectionism, is worrying about too much of outside sources,
Mm-hmm.
outside stuff you cannot control, environments and elements you cannot control. I mean, I could be coming out, like there'd be times we'd be practicing, and it's like, no, we're not going to practice in the indoor because we don't know what the weather's going to be. We got to stay outdoors because we got to
Yeah.
deal with the elements. We have to deal with the environment not being perfect. And I think that's times that at times we need to be doing that, understanding life. Hey, you know what? Weather ain't going to be perfect all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be able to adjust for mistakes. I think that's the best thing a perfectionist can have, is just next play.
Yeah.
Who cares about whatever? Next play. I
Yeah.
know who
So
I am.
Yeah, and to that point, right? So we have that to your very point. We have the what we just described, the unhealthy perfectionist,
Yeah.
the individual who's striving so hard but cares so much about what everything, uh, or how everybody thinks, what is happening,
Yeah.
and that individual, he or she is just getting absolutely drained.
Man, what is Stephen A. gonna get
Oh,
at on first?
hey, I'm about to be on
Yeah.
Sports Center, not top 10. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. What
so
is SVP gonna say about me? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, to your point, right, is we have the what we call the healthy perfectionist. So this is an individual who strives high,
Yeah.
is trying to be, the best, 100%, 15 out of 15 free throws, 5 out of 5 field goals, or whatever the case may be, fill in the blank. So this person's striving high, but they don't really care too
Yeah.
much about what other people think or about the conditions or about what people may say. So on that perfectionistic concerns axes, they're way to the left. They don't really care. So he calls this person a healthy perfectionist,
Yeah.
which is a good place to be. And then the non-perfectionist is the individual who doesn't really strive high, and he or she doesn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I both know we've played with players like this, and they have what we call talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that talent always seems to catch up with them too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I mean, it's like I just remember people saying to me at times, or I mean, my dad said this a lot too. It's just like, man, I tell you, I'd much rather have work ethic than talent.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
mean, you'd be amazed what you can accomplish with work ethic and just perfectionism. You'd be
Mhm.
amazed what you can accomplish with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are your three, and that's the model. Dr. Joaquin Stober's model is one of the most robust in literature. It's the one that I teach, the one I love, and I think it's a really simple way of looking at it. Right? You got your
Yeah.
unhealthy perfectionist, your healthy perfectionist, and then your non-perfectionist. So what I want to do today is I want to teach or share an acronym that you can use in real time to deal with perfectionism or the
Yeah.
maladaptive bad things that happen with perfectionism. What do you think, man?
Let's hit it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So real quick. So before I share this, I'm going to go to some history. So if you look at ancient warfare, some of the things that would happen when one nation was trying to take over another nation or besiege another nation. And I'm just being very respectful because we all know what's going on in the world right
Yeah.
now. Um, one of the tactics was to use reconnaissance missions and spies to go out and spy the land,
Yeah.
and these spies would, in essence, set up camps before they would, uh, you know, try to take over, and they would get all types of intel. They would understand the comings and the goings. They would look at key targets. They would understand the schedules,
Mm-hmm.
and they would be very privy to like what was going on.
Yeah.
And one of the things that again that they would do is they would just set up these camps. Like, all right, like this is what's happening now. How can this be useful or beneficial for you right now in your career where you are? Um, for this next phase of your life, right? Whatever it is that you're struggling with right now, you might be listening to this today and say, "Man, I really struggle with perfectionism. Like, everything has to be perfect," or I start throwing a tantrum, and I feel like I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. And what I want to do is I want to encourage you to to follow this acronym, to understand that before you go into this next chapter of your life, after you understand perfectionism more, to remember these letters because they're going to help you. And so the C stands for celebrate. A lot of athletes, high performers, fill in the blank, they don't take the time to celebrate.
Yeah.
So they have an accomplishment, right? They've done well. They've had a great game. They've had a great performance. And on to Cincinnati, Bill Belichick. You know what I'm saying? Like they just, it's like robotic. They just go right to the next thing and they don't
Mm-hmm.
celebrate. And what happens in our brain is that when we have an expectancy of rewards, our brain releases dopamine. It's the feel good,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh man. And when you take the time and say, you know what, this has been a really great week of practice. I had a really great game, or I had a career high in catches, whatever the case may be for you. When you
Hmm.
take the time to celebrate, your brain
Yeah.
says, you know what? I want to do that again.
Hmm.
And then guess what? The celebration now supersedes. It's bigger than, it's more important than being perfect. What do you think, man?
Yeah, that's that's stuff we've always talked about too. It's just self-reflection. And a lot of people that I have the opportunity to talk with and speak with and mentor and stuff is constantly trying to tell them, man, you need to take time to self-reflect.
Yeah.
Positive. What have you accomplished? Because that's gonna definitely change your perspective.
Yeah, the reflection is huge, and with that comes celebration. Like, man, go out to
Yep.
have a nice dinner. Go get some ice cream with the kids. Like we do that with our kids when our kids have a big milestone. Hey, let's go get ice cream. It's like a very small thing, right? But it implants in them like I'm being recognized for this moment, and I know what this moment feels like. Uh-oh,
Yeah.
hold on one second. All right, we should be good. We should be good. We back in there. So it
Nice.
implants in them and it says, "Hey, listen, like you did well. We're celebrating.
Yeah.
We've come a long way." And your brain is making that signature and says, "I like the way this feels. I want to do it again, and I
Yeah.
want to do it again, and I want to do it again." And so celebration, being able to celebrate, is huge. What do
Yeah.
you think, man?
No, that's huge, man. That's well, that also forces you to look at the goals you've accomplished, the things that
Hmm.
you've been saying you want to do, the things that you're saying you want to get perfect at. I think self-reflection, with especially kind of like the beginning of the acronym of camps, man, it's kind of like, I think that's a great place to start. Celebrate. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good, man. That's huge.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to put him on a spot, but you look at somebody like Bill Belichick, who always looks all, and you know what? I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and that dude has kicked our butt for years. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the things that with him, it's like you look at his press conferences, and he's notorious for being dry, stiff, and on to the next one, right?
Oh
On
yeah.
to the next, you know. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, you see that from old boy Saban too, over there in Alabama.
yeah, yeah,
Our only goal is to win the national championship.
yeah, yeah,
And it's
and
just
and
kind
there,
of like, all right, well, Nick, you just won. Yep, that was our goal this year. It's kind of
yeah.
like, oh God.
Hey, gotta celebrate, man. It
Yeah.
just it's like oxygen for the soul.
Yeah.
So the A is all out. Many perfectionists don't want to go all out. They want why? Because they want to keep their world small. They don't want to fail. And so
Great
when
point.
I have a controllable space, guess what?
Hmm.
The likelihood that I'm going to fail is very low.
Yeah.
So you know what happens when you go all out? When you go all out, you in essence give yourself a true measuring stick of who you really are. That's what happens when you
Yeah.
go all out. Is that you
Yeah.
get a true measuring stick of who you really are. When you don't go all out, you never know. And that's what I tell players all the time. You never know if you never go. You never
Yeah.
know if you never go, man.
That might be plaguing our All-Star games.
Yeah, 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 exactly. We've talked about the All-Star games and how
Yeah.
players aren't going all out and stuff like that. And the thing about going all out is that I'm not saying that you need to go to 1,000% all the time.
Yeah.
What I am saying is that you need to go outside of your comfort zone continually, because that's the only time you grow.
Yeah.
When
So true.
you don't grow in a comfort zone. Like you grow to an extent, but physiologically, psychologically, like you grow when you are stretched. You grow when there are healthy stressors. You grow when you are
Yeah.
challenged. And
Well, like, you
so,
know how long it took, like we've talked about too, just like even the weight room,
oh yeah,
strength coach and lifting and working out and all that. Like, you remember, it's like, oh, it's max time. We're going to
oh
find
yeah,
out everything you can do. And it's like,
yep,
guys used to get so mad when they would miss their max. And it's like, that's helping you get
yeah,
stronger.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, just just the perspective has got to change.
And even what you said about the maxing and stuff like that, that I used to love, as a strength coach, I used to love test day,
Yeah.
because that's when you really know, not only as a coach, but as a player, if your program works and
Yeah.
if you did the work.
Yeah.
So you got all the guys who took it seriously, and all of a sudden they're maxing out and they're making the other guys look like terrible.
Yeah. All those
And
guys with the talent.
yeah, and the, and
Yeah.
the and the cats who weren't, that weren't going hard, that
Yeah.
weren't, um, taking it seriously, they get exposed. And
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
you have to go all out. A lot of perfectionists do not honor this point. They don't go all out, and it hurts them in the long run. So the A is all out. The M is make minor improvements. When you look at the famed business mogul Peter Drucker, he said something that is applicable to many areas, although it's not applicable to all areas, it's applicable to many areas. He said you cannot manage what you cannot measure, right?
Wow.
He's like, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So a lot of times I'll talk to, athletes. Hey man, you getting better? Yeah. Okay, how? Prove it. How? Show me. Well,
Yeah.
uh, and
Yeah.
it's not like, I want to see numbers, see data. I want to see facts. I want to see measurables. Like what does it really
Yeah.
look like, right? Are you
Yeah.
60% better? Are you 50% better? Are you 30% better? Like, how much better are you, right?
Yeah.
Because if you ain't getting better, you're stealing money and you're stealing time, right?
Yep.
So what are your thoughts, man, in regards to making minor improvements and being able to see it tangibly?
Well, that all goes back to I don't think you can do that without the all out, because the all out's where you're going to find where you're weak.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to find out where that's your measuring point, and then we can get in here and find out, okay, this is where I can improve. And then I can come up with a proper game plan
Mm-hmm.
to make these minor improvements. I also think that you brought up a good point too. It's like as a strength coach, man, at times, or just even asking players, how'd you improve? It got them thinking, what are you doing how can you measure that? I think
Yeah.
sometimes you need somebody else to help you measure that,
Mm-hmm. And
you know?
it's yeah, you need that, and we talked about, accountability, right? Like,
Yeah.
making sure people are accountable. And I remember in my days as a strength coach, man, like, I would have the players walk around with their program, and they would have a
Yep.
pen or a pencil, and it was cool because you set it up right. They can start to see, like, yo, man, I used to be this weak. Like, dang, man, I was
Yeah.
doing what? Now I'm
So
doing
yeah.
what?
So
And
now you
just the
got dudes celebrating in the middle of the whole thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And to see the light switch go off
Yep.
in players' eyes and their minds, you can see it, and they're like,
Exactly.
"Man, I'm so much stronger now than I was, and I can see it on paper. I can see it on the
Yeah.
bar."
And that's
And
that's needed, because sometimes, like there are times like you'd come back from college or something, somebody'd be like, dang, you've been working out, man, you look good. Oh, wow, wow, wow. And it's like you can never judge that because you see yourself every day.
yeah,
And I think sometimes that's what you're doing, is you're providing that constant positive feedback.
mhm,
Because if you don't have that paper, you don't notice that.
yeah. Or it's just guessing. It's pleasantries. Oh
Yes.
yeah, I'm getting good. I'm getting better. Like,
Yeah.
no, like no, like, I actually am getting better. Look, I used to lift this. I used to run this. Now I'm
Yeah.
lifting this. Now I'm running this.
Yeah. That's huge.
So making minor improvements. And what happens is, as an athlete, again, we're talking about perfectionism and performance. When you can start to make those minor improvements and you see the tangible measurements,
Yeah.
guess what that does to the what we talked about earlier, the maladaptive, things that happen with perfectionism. They start to go down. They don't have control over you anymore.
Yep.
So that's the M. The P is process. Now, this is one of the most overused words in the world of sports, man. And I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, funny dude. This dude's Twitter handle is Troel. Troel Embiid. This cat be trolling cats, but
Yeah.
they're big on that over there. You know what I'm saying? Is process.
Yeah.
Nick Saban, we talked about him. We talked about Belichick. These are
Yeah.
process guys. You look at somebody like Popovich, process. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
these coaches, these play, like, they're process. And when I look at process consists of inputs, application, and evaluation over time.
Okay.
So, process. Oh, I'm sticking to the process. What does that mean? What does
Yeah.
that mean? Because I need to know what that means. Like, so my when I teach process is inputs. What are your inputs? Is it 3 times a week? What are your frequency, your duration, load, volume, intensity? Like, what does that look like for you? What are your inputs?
Yeah.
Right? Name them. What are the
Yeah.
ingredients? What are your ingredients? Name them. So now all of a sudden you have, you know what I'm saying, your inputs, and then you have to apply it. Right? So now I'm actually doing the stuff, doing the work, and then you have to evaluate it. Is my program working? Am I getting stronger? Am I throwing harder? Am I jumping higher? Am I
Yeah.
scoring better? And then, my friends, you have a process. Like that is those are the basal ingredients of process. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah. No, that's huge, man, because within perfection, I want to know that my process works.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know that I'm not wasting my time. I want to know that what I do works. I want to know that the things I'm focusing on are actually for a reason. I'm
Yeah.
going to get something out of that, um, and I think that's really everything. Those
Yeah.
guys. The nice thing, you got like Popovich, and they got the names, Saban and all those guys. You got to think about how many guys they've already processed. They've worked the kinks out, the failures, the wasted
Mm-hmm.
time, the wasted movements, the stuff that's not needed. That's something you want as a perfectionist in your life for sure.
Yeah, one of my mentors told me, he goes, Joe, we ain't into making stews, man. I'm like, he's like, we ain't.
Yeah,
He goes, we ain't into making stews, man. You know how it is. You go to a restaurant, they got the soup of the day.
yeah, oh yeah,
You know what I mean? And what is the chef doing? He's just putting everything, all the leftovers. You don't know what's in there, bro. Like you don't know
yeah,
what's in there. Is there seafood in there? Is it chicken? Is it shrimp? Is it beef? Like, what are we doing? Right? They're
yeah,
just throwing stuff, a little pinch of this, a little touch of that, a little spoon of that. When he goes, man, we ain't into making stews, bro. We need to have ingredients. And,
yeah,
and and when he told me that, it blew my mind because I'm like, man, it's actually right. Like, what are your inputs?
yeah.
What are
That's
your inputs?
that's real good.
Like, we ain't into stew. So when you go to a nice restaurant, right, and you take your wife to a nice restaurant, those expensive restaurants, they ain't pulling out stews and soups. Like,
No,
and if they are, they're very they're made in such a way that it is of the highest order in terms of cuisine. But
yeah,
when you're ordering that filet, you're usually ordering the asparagus, the mashed potatoes, fill in the blank, a la carte, and
yeah,
everything comes out singularly. Like this is you've ordered the filet, you've ordered the asparagus, you've ordered the
yeah,
mashed potatoes, and it comes out on this beautiful, glistening white plate, and you know exactly what it is.
100%.
There ain't no stews, man.
Yeah,
So when you talk about process, you got to define it. When you talk about making minor improvements, you got to define it. And so
yes,
up until this point, we have to celebrate, we have to go all out, we have to make minor improvements, we have to honor the process. What is your process? What are your inputs? Right.
yeah,
And then the last one is perhaps the most important and the most powerful. S. You have to separate. You have to separate who you are from what you do. You are a
good.
person first and then a performer second. For those athletes and performers who are listening to this, I'm going to say that again, using the words of Dr. James Lohr, who's done tremendous work in the area of mental toughness. You're a person first.
Yeah,
You're a performer second. And you need to separate who you are from what you do. You had value before you put on the cleats and the helmet. You had value before you put on the baseball uni, the basketball uni, the softball uni, the volleyball uniform. You had value before you put on that stuff. As a matter of fact, you are the one that adds value to your sport, not the other way around.
yeah,
For those who maybe, have it twisted, a golf club is just a golf club until it touches the hands of Tiger Woods.
yeah,
A tennis racket is just a tennis racket until it touches the hands of Serena. A basketball was just a basketball until LeBron gets a hold of it or until Michael got a hold of it, right? We are the ones as human beings, we add value to our sport. Our sport doesn't add value to us. And I'm talking about personally, right? Our spirits,
yeah,
our souls, our beings. I'm not talking about in the marketplace. And so Derek, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but we've talked about this before, man. So many performers, so many athletes, they stake their identity, their self-worth on what they do and not who they are. And you and I both know that that's a dangerous proposition.
Very much so. And I would say this is the hardest thing out of the acronym today to actually accomplish, to separate the two. I think that's the most
Yeah.
difficult. I think
Yeah.
it's easy to try to find a way to say, man, you know what I did? Man, I balled out today. I think it's kind of easy to find times to celebrate at times, Uh, the all out thing. Somebody tries to call you, let's get competitive. Come on, man, let's go one on one, me and you. Let's see what
Mhm.
happens. I think it's easy to kind of get into that. Even self reflection, minor improvements. I get it. Coming up with research on a proper process, man. But being able to separate those two, I think that's the most difficult, hands down.
Yeah, being able to separate. I mean, I've seen it, man. I've worked with players who literally could not do this.
Yeah,
They could not get over who they are from what it is that they do.
yeah,
And what they did or what they failed to do on the field or on the court, in the ring, on the on the track, whatever the case may be, that dictated their whole existence.
oh,
I
100.
had I and it's the lie that we fall into, right? Oh, I had a great game. I balled out. I'm a great person. And
Yeah,
conversely, I had a terrible game. I didn't do well. I struck out. I fumbled. I got knocked out. I got pinned. You know what I'm saying? I
yeah,
gave up. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't dig on on that last kill by the opposing team. Whatever the case may be, and now I'm a bad person. I shouldn't be
yeah.
here. I'm questioning myself. I'm questioning my life, my ability to compete and perform at a high level, right? It's
Well, and
dude,
that's yeah.
it's dangerous, man. Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing too, is you hit on it as well. Is it's that plagues you not even just when you're playing, but after you're done. Like we're talking retired, have to move on to something
Mhm.
else. It's still plaguing you then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brutal, man. And yeah, the S is I agree. I think it's the most powerful one and it's the most difficult.
Yeah.
But I believe that what happens is if you follow the acronym, right, and you start to be intentional in some of these areas, you celebrate, you know,
Yeah.
you go all out, you make minor improvements, you honor a process. I believe that what starts to happen is as you start to peel back those layers, separating who you are from what you do actually becomes easier
Yeah.
because you can start to see like, man, I know I am getting better. Oh, you know
Yes.
what? Yeah,
Exactly.
I am celebrating. I'm a human. I'm being a human being. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I am challenging myself,
Yeah.
right? And I can see the improvements. I can see where I might need more work or less or whatever the case may be. Um so yeah, man. And so I think I'm gonna close with this, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts, man. And we all know we've all heard Leonardo da Vinci, right? And he was one of the most brilliant minds ever to walk the face of the earth. Really, I mean, this dude was an inventor, a painter. Um, he was a Renaissance man, literally a Renaissance man.
Yeah.
You know, um, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you how much the Mona Lisa is worth now.
Oh
You
wow.
can you can
Yeah.
go ahead and Google that.
Yeah.
But when we start talking about perfectionism, Leonardo da Vinci struggled with this stuff. And he has a famous quote. He said, I have failed both God and mankind, right? Because my work did not reach the quality that it should have.
Wow.
Like this is the narrative that
Hmm.
he's having with himself, right?
Yeah.
This man who painted the Mona Lisa, we all seen the image of the painting of the Last Supper.
Yeah.
That was Leonardo da Vinci. I'm not going to tell you how much that painting's worth.
Yeah.
Go Google it. You'll see. I have failed both God and mankind because my work did not reach the quality that it should have.
Man.
This is the narrative, right? And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
we've all gone through this. And you know, again, an inventor, a scientist, a painter, an artist. This man actually developed, rather, one of the predecessors to the modern day helicopter. They called it the air screw, and if you go back and you just Google it, you'll see these drawings, these renditions of what was going on in this man's mind. It was brilliant, man. This guy was brilliant,
Yeah.
and he was
Head of the
drawing
time.
these. Yeah, he was way ahead of his time. And
Yeah.
he's drawing these things, and they're taking some of those concepts and inventing modern day technology that we have today. And he has resigned himself to saying, I have failed both God and mankind because my work did not reach the quality that it should have. Talking about perfectionism, right? And so I just want to encourage everybody today to believe those narratives, right? That,
Yeah.
if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. I have to be perfect at all times for people to love me, to respect me. Like, let's get rid of that narrative and understand that, there's nothing wrong with striving for perfection. What happens when we get caught up is when we start dealing with the maladaptive, the bad habitual behaviors that
Hmm.
happen after we're not perfect, right?
Yeah.
So just want to encourage everybody today, man. I love this topic, and it's a topic that I can talk about for hours. Derek, what else you got, man, about perfectionism? What are some final words, man?
I think that's a very sobering view, man. Leonardo da Vinci, man, having trouble being able to celebrate. You got a man of that has accomplished those types of things that we're talking about. Because there's an element, right, of trying to push yourself, right?
Hmm.
Hey, I want to get better. Hey, we still got to keep improving. I get that, but there's a fine line, man. So
Yeah,
I think that's a great way to close out, man. Is taking somebody that has done those types of things, maybe needs a perspective shift a little bit
yeah,
here.
no doubt. And again, just want to encourage everybody to use this CAMPS acronym when you feel like you're struggling with perfectionism, or you want to get a healthier view of perfectionism,
Yeah.
right? Celebrate something. Celebrate your accomplishments, your achievements, your milestones. Go all out. Don't be afraid to get outside of your comfort zone. That's where all growth happens. Make minor improvements and document it, right? Like,
Hmm.
I'm 60% better than I was last year. I'm
Oh
50%,
yeah.
40%, whatever. Make minor improvements and document it. P, what's your process? Make sure you have a process. What are your inputs?
Yeah.
We're not into making stews. Like we need the ingredients,
Yeah.
apply them and evaluate them over a period of time, and you'll start to see, like, okay, this process works, or this
Yeah.
process can improve. And then the last letter there is S. Separate who you are from your performance, what it is that you do, because you, my friend, you are the one who adds value to your team, your organization, to your sport, to your domain, whatever it is, and not the other way around.
100%.
God made you beautifully and wonderfully just the way you are, and you're the one who adds value, not the other way around. And so, with that said, this is Josiah Igano and Derek Devine for the All Things Performance podcast. God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.